Hi everyone, I'm back with a video about enmeshment and intimacy. What's the difference? Why is it that enmeshment is not the same thing as intimacy? So, what is it that distinguishes enmeshment from intimacy? And is it trauma or is it connection? When you are very, very attracted to somebody, you feel this incredible, feeling as if you've known them before from another lifetime. Is it actually trauma rather than connection? And the third one, to take a look at how you experience love. So many of us in the world are looking for love, but in actual fact, they don't find love. Or if love comes into their life, they lose it very quickly. Some of us may be even afraid of love, and we may find love very dangerous. And all of that can be tracked back to childhood trauma of enmeshment. Okay, so what is enmeshment? Enmeshment is actually a fusion of boundaries where the parent or the caregivers, the older siblings, grandparents, everybody is telling the child who to be, how to be, what to do, and who they are. And for many of us, that's part of good parenting. And we don't want to neglect the child. We want to raise them in a way that we can be proud of later on, which kind of passes on our legacy and makes sure that our child is wonderful and amazing when they grow up, doing all the right things, doing all the good things. And that, in a nutshell, is enmeshment trauma. The degree to which it is traumatic depends on the tools that are used to enforce it. One of the tools could be love, a lot of affection, a lot of rewarding, positive rewards, a lot of appreciation of the child, a lot of watching over the child, that the child doesn't hurt themselves, doesn't get bruised, or doesn't suffer in any way. And good parenting has quite a bit of that as well, whatever we call good parenting. And then the second thing that we do with enmeshment, and which makes it enmeshment, is that we speak for the child. We do for the child. And this is what we consider caretaking. And it's considered to be what good mothers do. So the trauma comes from how much negative emotion we use to control the children: anger, guilt, or shame. These are all very, very powerful and, dare I say it, very, very scary emotions that we may use to control children. And some of us, don't know any other way of doing it, and the other ways of doing it may be just too difficult and too hard for us to actually do. And so, all of us, normal, child rearing, we do resort to some of these tools to control children. Now, what's the problem with it? Like, what's the problem with somebody who had a lot of enmeshment as a child? Enmeshment, even though it looks a lot like intimacy or closeness between two people, that feeling of connection, that feeling of being heard and seen. So, enmeshment looks a lot like intimacy with one major difference, the level of anxiety is very high when there is significant enmeshment. And the enmeshment is such that the child does not feel safe being seen and heard. So there's so much enmeshment that the other person basically um, mm, cannot actually experience intimacy, because it's so frightening for them to get close to another person, to be seen and heard for who they are. They may never have done it before, they may never have an experience of being seen and heard for who they are. And so love can be actually really, really frightening for somebody who's grown up with a lot of enmeshment. So, for example, if, the parenting for a boy is a lot of like criticism, beating up, and all of that, with inconsistency in giving affection. So it's unpredictable when the parent is going to give affection and when the parent is going to just really be mad at them. They're going to have some investment trauma. So when they later on in life, when they meet somebody or they go into a partnership with someone, they're going to have some fears. Those fears will be managed either by being very controlling and enmeshing a lot with their partner, behaving as if the partner is an extension of themselves, or on the other end of the spectrum, running away from the partner. As soon as they get emotionally close, they're going to find this very threatening to their sense of self, and they're going to want to distance themselves. The partner may perceive this as rejection, the partner may perceive this as lack of love, or a coldness, and the partner may respond in their particular way, which can often be walling off as well. Trust issues can develop, and there can be a general avoidance of connection and closeness, and intimacy. Or if there is intimacy, there could be these cycles of running away, being really, distant after intimacy. Especially for men, it can be so. With women, sometimes it's so, sometimes it's not. It really, really depends. But women can actually desire more enmeshment. They may desire more enmeshment as a way to reassure themselves that the person is there for them, really, in the same way that they experience love as children. Or the same thing with the man. They may desire more enmeshment as a way to reassure themselves. But that process of reassurance is actually quite threatening. So after they've been very, very close, they may find that super threatening because, to themselves. So they may try to control their partner even more in order to reassure themselves. So you can imagine, like over time, this becomes a little bit toxic, because we are wanting freedom. Deep down inside, our happiest nature is when we feel free rather than controlled or enmeshed with another person. So we start to feel as if we're losing ourselves. And if that is so, then, and if it's an extreme feeling for some people that they are losing themselves in relationship, it can be traced back to the idea of enmeshment. And they may not be used to being in relationship without losing their boundaries. And when people are in relationships where their sense of boundaries are not respected or accepted, that their individual self is not safe, they tend to do a couple of things. They wear masks, they pretend to be someone that meets the approval of their family, which is why enmeshment can be very common in families where, the parents have a lot of ambition for their children. And so there is that incredible need to please the parent and have the parent's approval in enmeshed, people. There is also a trauma with that enmeshment. There is a anxiety. So you can know if there is enmeshment if when you're around your parent, there is a lot of anxiety. You feel very, very anxious. So that indicates that there is enmeshment that is still affecting the relationship even as adults. So what other ways can we know in that there is enmeshment is how you behave in relationships. Whether you run away when you've been too close to someone, whether you're very afraid when you get too close to someone, when you actually want more and more of their time, when you get close, you find yourself becoming very needy. Those are all signs that at the emotional level, you have experienced abandonment, you have experienced neglect, you have experienced a lack of boundaries at significant stages in development. And so your own behavior in relationship can tell you so much about your childhood, or even your parents' childhood, because these are all intergenerational as well. Okay, so how do you experience love? Is love safe? Do you feel relaxed when you're in a relationship or falling for someone or dating someone or married to someone? Do you feel safe in that connection? Or do you need to become someone else to be in that connection? Can you be yourself? For some people in the initial stages, and that I think is pretty common across the board, in the initial stages, they may actually really pretend to be the person that they think is their most lovable self based on what was affirmed and what was told to them in previous relationships. So they'll try to be the best version of themselves based on whatever feedback they got. And then after time, they'll kind of, feel a little more secure and try to show their wounds or express who they really are. And this is their desire to be accepted by the other person and to be loved for who they are with all their flaws. Now, this may actually really, really test the relationship. So, there's this 3 month to 6 month mark where relationships can go into a very turbulent stage because the person who has had significant enmeshment trauma may be very scared that they can't be themselves with the partner. They won't have the control that they're seeking over themselves if they're with that partner. So they're going to be very, very, very nervous about the relationship, especially if there have been some red flags to start with. So that's a very edgy time, and that's a good time to understand what your triggers are and what your issues are or were, and what you need to work on. So I recommend grabbing a journal and working through a few of these questions. And the first question is just to notice and observe how anxious you feel around your significant other if you're in a relationship. And how free do you feel about being yourself with your significant person? So, number one, what's the level of anxiety? And we can take a scale 0 to 10 and to track it. Every time you meet them, just take a deep breath and notice how anxious you are. If you want to know how to know if you're anxious or not, that's a separate video. And to take a peek at that and just see if you can get some clues around it, or just post in the comments below. And So once you track your level of anxiety when you're with your significant other, sometimes anxiety can be a pleasant excitement. You may take some extra care in how you look, and there can be some positive behavior change because you care about what they think about you. And there can be negative anxiety where you're literally holding your breath, you're unable to breathe. And the next thing that the next question that I'd like you to kind of review or think about, or you may benefit really from doing so, is to answer if you can be yourself with this person generally, and without any fear, any anxiety. Can you say whatever you want to, or do you need to be careful about what you say because of their reaction? Okay, are you able to, express what you want and need? Higher levels of enmeshment will mean a reduced sense of freedom, a reduced sense of being yourself with them. For some people who are in those kinds of relationships that don't really feel safe, they will actually say things like, I have to put on a mask, I have to put on an act, I can't be with this person, it feels so uncomfortable after a while, and we need space from each other. And so that's fine, I'm fine for a little while, and then it feels like play acting, so that I don't trigger them, so that it's pleasant. So you may find yourself walking on eggshells. Now, if that's your state of mind and body, there's significant stress happening for you. Maybe this relationship is with a family member, a workplace colleague, or an intimate relationship. But in today's video, I'm really focusing only on intimate relationships, because intimate relationships always trigger our core wounds of childhood. This is where all our stuff that we may be successfully hiding from everyone else just shows up. Okay, so the next question you'll probably have, if you've got this far and you can continue to journal, what do I do about it? So, the first thing to do when it comes to enmeshment trauma is to start to develop a core sense of self that is strong and independent of the other person. So, this time where you are becoming you may need to be spent without other people, without other relationships in the mix, because those relationships will challenge your boundaries, will challenge your sense of self that is newly forming after significant amounts of enmeshment through your childhood or growing up. So why would you even do that if it's working for you? Well, it's not working for you if you are relying on addictions to cope with life. And addictions can be food, shopping, drugs, alcohol, all, or you're just not functional. You're finding yourself depressed. You're anxious about meeting people. You're not feeling like yourself. So, those are some of the reasons why somebody may do this deep inner work in order to grow and develop and be a complete person. So what's the best that we can do with enmeshment to start with? The best that we can do is get acquainted with who you are. What kind of things do you like? What kind of hobbies make you laugh and smile? um, who are some of those people you feel completely safe with? and start to increase those interactions on a daily, weekly basis. When you start to continuously reinforce your sense of self and you continuously become the person that you really were or have been the whole time beneath the veil of social approval, you will eventually come to a place where being with the person, in an intimate relationship, or being with another person, in an intimate relationship, is not going to feel as threatening to your sense of self. The hard part, however, is for that other person, usually, to accept the changes that are happening for you, whereby you are becoming more and more yourself. So having a simple, clear, conversation with your partner would be a good way to start this journey. To let them know that you are discovering yourself, you're strengthening your sense of self, which really doesn't have anything to do with them in this relationship. It has something to do with your childhood or even your parents' childhood, because it's all interconnected, and you're strengthening yourself for yourself and your happiness, and also a happier and more fulfilling relationship with your intimate partner. That the work you're doing is going to benefit both of them, and that is a very significant conversation to have. It's also an opportunity to find out what your partner's fears are. And this can happen that you start to develop a sense of self, and your partner may start to pull you back a little bit. Hey, what's this going on? Why are you doing things differently? I don't like that haircut. I like you in that, dress. I don't really, like purple on you, for example, or whatever it is that the partner notices and then just wants to pull you back into the familiar zone. So, you may want to let them know that I may try out some things that are not familiar, that I haven't done before. And these are all ways in which I'm building my sense of self. And it's a benefit for you, is in the sense that you can come along in ways that benefit you. So, if there is something that you've always wanted to do and not done it because of what I thought about it, maybe it's a time for you to think about that thing and then see how you feel about it. Reassure them that you're not leaving them, you're not abandoning them, you're not finding them less worthy of you, or how much you actually may appreciate them before you trigger them. So that's an interesting conversation to have. Even after they find this threatening, or they indicate that they find what you're doing threatening, you can reassure them. You can tell them that you're still here and you're going to stay. You just want to know who you are as well. So one of the benefits is greater intimacy. Believe it or not, when there is enmeshment, there is actually a reduction in intimacy, at least in my experience and in my work. Because there is all the time, there is a sense of loss of your own self in that relationship. There may be underlying grief and regret in that relationship, resentment and anger. Whereas when you are more integrated as yourself, you can actually enjoy real connection and real intimacy with another person. So, real intimacy is very, very fun. It's a place, that is reflected by um, a sense of profound togetherness, um, connection. And that kind of intimacy is the place where that sense of emptiness and loneliness with that people continually feel who've grown up with a lot of enmeshment, they actually find that that feeling of emptiness and loneliness disappears. It disappears when they're alone or significantly reduces. And when that happens, it will disappear also in relationships. So many times when you're working through various stages of enmeshment healing, there can be this sense of um, loss of yourself to begin with, then a gaining of yourself, and then maybe a fear of loss of the other or the person you were with that other person. And, so those are various stages that can occur. And then there's that grief of that, you know. And then eventually, when there is true connection with yourself and a safe love for yourself, then there is a new connection with significant other. And in that new connection, there is growth and there is peace and there is a sense of safety. There is no more regret or sadness about losing, all of loss in both the other stages. So if I were to say there were, and what I'm talking about is more, almost like three stages of growth. In the first stage, you want to um, release and heal some of the grief of losing yourself. In the second stage, releasing and healing the grief of losing the person you became in order to please the enmeshed partner, or in order to meet the approval of people who you cared about tremendously, who were essential to your survival and well being and belonging in the world. And in this third stage, finally, coming into your own and being present with yourself and others in a safe place. This is a more boundaried place. If there is a breach, like somebody tries to kind of walk into your space, as it were, try to enmesh with you, you may not like it. You may allow a little bit of it and then feel really uncomfortable about it. So uh, there'll be that need to reassure yourself that your boundaries and your sense of safety remain intact in that relationship. This is a fulfilling level of the relationship, um, because there are very low expectations in it. Unlike the first two stages, where there's tremendous expectation from the intimate partner to fulfill the needs, the emotional needs that weren't, provided or given to you in earlier development stages, there is actually a lack of expectation. Now, is it possible to do this, in a short period of time? I don't know. I really don't know. I think this can be a long, lifelong journey for some of us. And that's okay, because we're not here to be perfect. We're here to heal, and we're here to work on our stuff, and we're here to grow and develop. So, no matter how long it takes, it is worth it, first of all. Second of all, the process of discovering who you were meant to be and realizing true fulfillment is extremely lovely to experience. And it is so, so possible. Now, this is a very, very personal decision to grow psychologically or not. And nobody but yourself and your heart can make that decision and should not make that decision for you. Anyway, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this video. And if you like it, please comment or like it, subscribe to my channel, and generally reach out for questions. These are very general topics that I cover on the videos. If you want to work directly with me, then go to my website, www.holistichappinessacademy.com. Thank you. Bye now.